let me just focus on the Telco cloud deployment models that you may find, or you might find in the last few years, and then we will take it, and then we will jump into the entry points of the hyperscalers. So for Telco cloud deployment models, as I said, Telco cloud is a special kind of a private cloud that is usually, and I'm saying usually, not 100%, that sticks to a certain reference architecture provided by HCNFV, which is European Telecommunication Standardization Institute, and NFV, that's Network Functions Virtualization. So that's in the right, that's the reference architecture. So commonly, we witnessed in the last 6 years 3 different deployment models of T-Cloud. The first one, I call it single vendor setup or silo. And that is usually originating from a use case driven RFP. What is a use case driven RFP? For example, you issue an RFP to host IMS, for example. And then when you host this, when you do the IMS thing, you get a certain vendor, for example, ZTE or Huawei, okay? And for sure, respect to all vendors. So to onboard Huawei IMS, then Huawei brings you the full stack. For example, Fusion Sphere, Fusion Storage, and Cloud Opera. So they bring you the full cloud stack. Then you get a setup that is actually 100% tuned and provided by one vendor. This may happen also if you are like a small operator. You don't welcome multi-vendor stuff. For example, you get Ericsson Core. And when you get Ericsson Core, you get Ericsson hardware, HDS, you get Ericsson Cloud Execution Environment as an open stack, and you get Ericsson solution for containers and Ericsson VNFM, Ericsson NFVO. Then you get a full cloud stack from one vendor. So this has always been seen as a vendor lock, because at the end, it's very challenging to onboard external VNFs or VNFs from competitors on a certain telco vendor cloud. Imagine onboarding Ericsson on a Huawei cloud and vice versa. It's a little bit complicated, and it will take time. But there are examples in the market are doing that, and there are public releases, PRs on that. For example, Swisscom, they are having a full Ericsson stack. Some operators in the Gulf, they have a full Huawei stack. There is a second deployment model, which was seen by that time that is very aggressive. We called it a la carte model. And as you see the color code here, I hope you can see it. You can get the hardware from someone, the virtualization layer from another vendor, different VNFs from different vendors, and even generic VNFM, NFVO. And that model was adopted by AT&T. So by that time, AT&T in 2014-15 was the market leader in that direction. That AT&T had their own army of developers. They had a great contribution in the open source initiative, leading open source initiatives. So they had this mindset, and they went through this direction. But we will see in the coming slide how AT&T were, I would say, how their way of thinking changed by years. But for the time being, I'm showing you what is the model that was adopted by AT&T and maybe NTT Docomo by that time, that we will go for a la carte model. We will pick the best of breed in each domain, and we will do the integration by ourselves. In the middle, there was one other choice that you, as an operator, try to have some sort of a multi-vendor open model relying on a system integrator, okay? So for example, you do an infrastructure-driven RFP, like you do an RFP to build the cloud. You address the RFP to system integrators that can bring you a multi-vendor stack and commit to integrate. And we saw that actually in many operators. We saw that in Telefonica, we saw that in STC. So that was seen as something in the middle. But one of the negative things about that model, and we saw that in the market, that the VNF onboarding, or to onboard a new VNF, that had like somehow a bad reputation, that it takes like months to do an onboarding because it's a multi-vendor thing. But at the end, that was always the first onboarding. But when you do like multiple onboarding for the same VNF, it gets onboarded automatically and dynamically. So these are the 3 telco cloud deployment models that have been there in the market for the last 5 years.